What if I told you there's a family feud moment so shocking that it made Steve Harvey walk off the set mid-show? Welcome to Harvey's Highlights, where we explore the stories behind the moments that leave audiences speechless. Make sure you hit that subscribe button because this is one you won't want to miss. The episode starts like any other, with laughter and excitement buzzing through the studio. Steve Harvey, in his usual animated style, greets the contestants. All right, let's see what we got today, he says, his voice booming with energy. The audience cheers. The game progresses smoothly, with contestants guessing survey answers about everyday topics. But when one young man, a slightly nervous but determined contestant, steps up to answer a final question, the energy in the room changes. The question reads, "Name something that gets delivered every Tuesday." Steve chuckles and says, "Easy. That's gotta be the mail, right?" The contestant hesitates, takes a deep breath, and says, "Not the mail, Steve. It's the letters of hope." A murmur spreads through the studio. Steve, trying to process, leans back and laughs nervously. Letters of hope? What does that even mean? The contestant looks directly at him, his voice calm but steady. These are letters from families, from friends, even strangers. Letters for people in hospitals, letters for soldiers, letters for people who might not get one otherwise. The mailman brings them every Tuesday. He never misses a week. The audience quiets, sensing the weight behind the words. Steve's smile fades. He leans on the podium and whispers, almost to himself, "Oh, man, that's heavy." A producer nudges him to continue, but Steve shakes his head, raising a hand. No, hold on. Stop for a second," he says. He looks out at the audience, the camera capturing his unusually solemn expression. "I need a moment here," the contestant adds softly. "It's not just letters. It's stories, encouragement, sometimes the only words someone will read all week. That's why I never miss Tuesday." Steve takes a deep breath, his eyes glistening. Man, that's something else." The audience remains silent, hanging on every word. This was no ordinary family feud answer. It wasn't a funny or tricky answer that Steve could joke about. It was a truth so heartfelt that even the seasoned host, used to chaos, laughter, and surprises, couldn't immediately respond. And that's when it happened. Steve Harvey, for the first time in years of hosting, stepped back from the podium and walked off the set. "I need a second. I need a minute," he muttered as he disappeared behind the curtains. The audience sat in stunned silence. Cameras stayed rolling, capturing the rare moment of unfiltered emotion on national television. Producers whispered among themselves, unsure how to react, while the contestant stood frozen, realizing the gravity of his words. Backstage, Steve Harvey leaned against a wall, taking deep breaths, trying to process what had just been said. I can't just keep going," he whispered to a producer, his voice low but intense. "This kid, he just reminded everyone why words matter." Meanwhile, in the studio, the audience was whispering among themselves. One woman said, "Did he just walk off? On live TV?" Another added, "I've never seen him like this before. It must be serious." The contestant, still at the podium, adjusted his notes nervously. "I didn't mean to make him leave," he said softly. Steve had always been known for his humor and larger-than-life personality, but even he was human, capable of being touched by honesty and vulnerability. After a moment, a producer stepped in. "Steve, the cameras are still on. What should we do?" Steve shook his head, a faint smile breaking through his seriousness. "Leave it. Let them see the moment for what it is," he said. A co-host tried to lighten the mood, leaning into the microphone. "Well, I guess we just found out what family feud really means," she said. Laughter rippled lightly, but it was subdued, respectful. Everyone could feel the weight of the moment. Backstage, Steve's wife called him. "Are you okay?" she asked. He chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "I just needed to step away. This kid, he just reminded me of something I try to forget in the chaos of TV. How powerful small acts of kindness can be." After a few minutes, Steve returned to the stage, his expression calmer but deeply thoughtful. He looked at the contestant who was nervously fidgeting. You did something today," Steve said quietly. "Not everyone gets the courage to speak about real things on a show like this. You reminded us of the heart behind all the noise." The contestant nodded, humbled. "I just wanted people to know. Sometimes, it's the little things, the letters, the words that keep people going." Steve's voice cracked slightly as he responded, "I think we all needed to hear that today." He then addressed the audience. "Everybody take a second. Think about the small acts of hope you can give. That's the kind of stuff that matters. Way more than points or prizes." The show resumed, but the energy was different. The audience was quieter, more reflective. Even Steve's usual humor carried a softer tone, a respect for the story that had unfolded. The simple question about what gets delivered every Tuesday had turned into something unforgettable. A reminder of humanity and connection in the middle of a game show. As the cameras rolled again, the audience sat in stunned silence. Steve Harvey had returned to the stage, but the mood was noticeably different. Tense, reflective, and heavy with unspoken emotions. The contestant, a young man named Tyler, took a deep breath and spoke directly to Steve and the audience. "Every Tuesday, my mailman delivers something my mom left before she passed. Letters, small notes, sometimes just a card with a smiley face drawn on it. But those letters, they kept me going when I thought I couldn't." The words hung in the air. Steve, usually quick with a joke or a quip, remained silent for a long moment. "Man," he finally said, his voice quiet, "you just reminded all of us why we do what we do. And sometimes, the things we take for granted matter more than we think." A fellow contestant leaned in and whispered, "I didn't know letters could carry that much weight." Tyler nodded. "It's not the letters themselves. It's the love behind them. It's the thought that someone cared enough to reach out, even when they couldn't be there." Steve shook his head, visibly moved. "I'm telling you, Tyler, that's powerful. That's the kind of stuff that changes lives, not just wins games." He looked at the producers. "We might need to take a minute, just to let this sink in." In the audience, people were wiping their eyes. One man shouted, "Thank you for sharing that." Another added, "We needed this reminder today." The energy in the studio had shifted from competitive excitement to heartfelt reflection. Steve crouched slightly, resting his elbows on his knees, and addressed Tyler again. "You know, son, when I see someone brave enough to speak their truth, it stops me in my tracks. I've been hosting this show for decades, and I've never had a moment like this. I think everyone watching needs to remember that it's the small, simple things that make life meaningful." Tyler smiled shyly. "I just wanted to make sure people didn't forget the little things. The things that can bring someone hope, even on their darkest days." Steve nodded slowly. "Well, mission accomplished. You've done more than play Family Feud today, Tyler. You've reminded us all about heart, about humanity, and about why moments like this are more important than points or prizes." The co-host leaned in, her voice soft. "It's rare to see a game show stop and reflect like this, but maybe that's what makes it so real." Steve looked around the studio, eyes glistening. "Yeah, real life. And that's what today was. Real life." The rest of the show continued, but the story of Tyler's letters had left its mark. Even the funniest jokes were tempered with a softness, a respect for the vulnerability on stage. For once, everyone in the studio understood that some answers on Family Feud weren't about winning, they were about reminding us what really matters. The studio remained unusually quiet after Tyler's revelation. The audience members were still processing the weight of what had just been shared. Cameras panned across the crowd, capturing faces filled with emotion. Some smiling softly, some dabbing at tears, and others simply staring, lost in thought. Steve Harvey stood at the podium, looking down at the contestant with a mixture of awe and empathy. "Tyler, man, I need to be honest with you. I've seen a lot of moments in this building, funny moments, shocking moments, crazy moments. But what you just shared, that's something I'll carry with me for a long time. You reminded me, and everyone here, why we shouldn't take a single gesture of love for granted. Tyler looked down, a little embarrassed by the attention. I just wanted people to know. It's the little things that matter, sir. The mailman, the notes, the memory of my mom. They're small, but they keep me going. Steve nodded slowly, his usual booming energy replaced by something quieter, deeper. And that's what hit me, he said. Sometimes we're chasing the big wins, the prizes, the fame, but what really matters is the love, the thoughtfulness, the care we leave behind. That's what counts. One of the producers whispered to Steve, "Do you want to pause again?" He shook his head. "No, we let it breathe. Let them feel it. That's the power of a story like this." A fellow contestant leaned over to Tyler, whispering, "I've never thought about letters that way. I think I'm going to start paying more attention to the little things, too." Tyler smiled, quietly grateful that his story was already making an impact. Steve turned to the audience. "Folks, we usually play this game to have fun, to laugh, to compete. But today was different. Today, we were reminded that human connection, love, and care, those are the real victories. Tyler, you just stopped us all in our tracks. I don't know if you realized that, but you did." Tyler swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just wanted to honor my mom. That's all." Steve smiled softly, almost to himself. Sometimes the simplest intentions make the biggest difference. And that's exactly what happened here today. We laughed, we played, but we also remembered that life is fragile, precious, and sometimes you just need to take a moment to recognize what's truly important. The audience clapped slowly, respectfully, as the energy shifted back to the show's usual rhythm. But the feeling in the room had changed. People were reflective, touched, and moved. Even Steve, who had walked off the stage earlier in disbelief, now seemed to carry a quiet reverence for the moment Tyler had created. "Tyler," Steve said finally, placing a hand on the contestant's shoulder. "You've done something that can't be measured in points or prizes. You reminded us all what it means to care, to remember, and to honor those we love. That's bigger than any game we could ever play." The cameras slowly cut to commercials, leaving the audience and the contestants in a thoughtful, almost meditative silence, the echoes of Tyler's story lingering long after the words had been spoken. When the cameras returned from commercial, the atmosphere in the studio was noticeably different. The laughter and energy that usually filled the room were replaced with a quiet, respectful attentiveness. Steve Harvey stood at the podium, a somber yet reflective expression on his face. "Folks, we play a lot of games on this show, we have a lot of fun. But today," Steve began, his voice measured and sincere, "we were reminded of something much bigger than points, prizes, or even the jokes we tell each other on this stage. Today was about love, memory, and the impact of small, thoughtful acts. Tyler, you brought that to all of us in a way I'll never forget." Tyler, the contestant, gave a small nod, looking both humbled and overwhelmed by the gravity of the moment. "I didn't think it would affect anyone like this," he said softly. Steve chuckled lightly but shook his head. "Son, that's the thing. It's the little things that hit the hardest. A letter, a note, a memory. Those things carry more weight than any trophy ever could. Today, you reminded us all what matters." A fellow contestant spoke up, her voice tinged with emotion. "I've been taking my mom for granted. I think I needed to hear this." Tyler smiled faintly, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. The audience, now completely silent, seemed to collectively hold their breath as Steve continued, almost speaking more to himself than anyone else. "Sometimes I think we get so caught up in the game we forget life outside these walls. And then a moment like this comes along, and it stops you cold. And it makes you think about what really matters. I've been hosting this show for years, and I've never seen anything quite like today." He paused, letting the words settle over the room. "Tyler, the world may not always recognize the quiet heroics, the thoughtful gestures, the small reminders of love. But those are the moments that define us. Those are the moments we carry in our hearts. You gave all of us that gift today." Tyler's mother, sitting in the audience, reached out to squeeze his hand. "I'm proud of you, son," she whispered. Tyler nodded, his emotions visible but controlled. Steve turned to the audience, raising his hands slightly. Folks, I'm going to say this one more time because it bears repeating. Life moves fast. We chase, we run, we play, but don't forget to notice the small things, to honor the love around you, and to cherish every gesture, every note, every message that someone leaves behind. That's what makes life meaningful. The studio erupted into a heartfelt applause, not the typical clapping of a game show, but the kind that comes from genuine understanding and shared emotion. Even Steve Harvey, usually the center of comedic energy, remained quiet, almost reverent. As the cameras slowly pulled back, the contestants returned to their seats, still digesting the experience. Tyler's story would live on in the hearts of everyone present, a testament to how a simple truth, shared in a sincere way, can stop the world for a moment, even on the busiest of stages. Steve finally smiled, looking at Tyler one last time. Son, you made me proud today, not because of the game, but because of the heart you showed. That's the kind of win that never ends. The audience clapped again, some standing, some wiping tears from their eyes, as the episode came to a close. What had started as a normal day of Family Feud had turned into a profound reminder of humanity, love, and the power of honesty. And in that moment, the game didn't matter. The hearts in the room did.